Hello and welcome to the Housing Minute. My name is Samuel Gunter. I'm the Executive Director of the North Carolina Housing Coalition, and I want to take a little bit more than a minute to talk about values, about the mission of the Housing Coalition. Apologies in advance, maybe jump into Samuel Gunter Baptist preacher mode, but I cannot let the comments that were made by the sitting Vice President over the last week go without an answer. For those of you who have not seen, in a speech in Peachtree City, Georgia, which is a suburb of Atlanta, or in the words of Armour the Great, for those who know, not Atlanta. The Vice President, in a speech defending the reconciliation package that passed out of Congress and the mobilization of the National Guard to Washington, D.C., and the potential future mobilization of the National Guard to other American cities, talked about homelessness in downtown Atlanta as an example, as a justification, and said something along the lines of, since when did it become acceptable for an American family to have to cross the street to get away from a crazy person yelling at them? And they ended by saying, those are your streets. And it hit like a knife. Those are your streets. The reality is their streets as well. Earlier that week, he made a comment in a news interview and attributed the leveling off of housing costs to enforcement actions around immigration. This is a line of attack that J.D. Vance has been on for quite some time. You can go back to Senate Banking Committee hearings from 2 years ago when he was in the Senate, talking about how illegal immigrants, in his view, are the cause of rising housing costs. He gave a speech to the National League of Cities 5 months ago saying the same thing. In both of those instances, whether it's the illegals that are the reason that your housing is so expensive, or it's the homeless, they're the problem, we just got to get rid of them, and then we solve the solution. We get to our solution that has undergirded the strategy coming out of this White House. It's profoundly insidious, and it doesn't work. We spend, by a factor of 10 or 20 more, doing things like deploying the United States military to forcibly remove Americans with no solution. We talked about it in this video a couple of weeks ago when the executive order came out. And we talked about it through the lens of North Carolina's motto, which is to be, not to seem. You're solving the visibility of a thing, not the thing itself. You haven't solved homelessness. You haven't created opportunity for folks. You've removed people from public spaces so they don't see the problems in the broader economic system. That is not a solution, and you're paying exorbitant amounts of money to do it. And any of us who do this work know that we are strapped for resources. We have dedicated folks that are about solving problems for everyone, and for folks who are most difficult to solve the problems for. What we are always lacking are sufficient resources that scale to the need, but you're spending those resources on incredibly expensive and punitive enforcement actions that do not work and are not even designed to solve the problem. And you're justifying it through this idea of creating an other, a them, that is the enemy to your prosperity and your comfort and your thriving. And if we can just remove them, then you can clear the way for the real us to thrive. But I want to again point you back to the mission of the Housing Coalition, which is to lead a movement to ensure that every North Carolinian has a home in which to live with dignity and opportunity. It is not sufficient to remove a huge subset of folks from the equation and think that you have come to a solution. And here's where the Baptist preacher in me comes in. There is no us and them. There is no illegal and citizen. There is no homeless and housed. There is one category, and that is neighbor. And we are called to love the neighbor Full stop. It is incredibly important, especially in this moment, which, to be honest, is an incredibly scary moment. For those of us who do this work, to speak loudly from our chests, grounded in the values that bring us to this work, that we are not going to leave anyone behind. We are not interested in a thriving community for some. We are interested in the thriving community for all. It is going to be critical for us to stand in that value, especially as what is being pushed upon us at the moment from this administration is one that is trying to create, this is an analogy that I've been deploying for the last couple of months, is a manufactured game of musical chairs that finds us fighting with each other to make sure we're not the last one out, when all along there are other chairs we could have brought in. The table is big enough. To lead a movement to ensure that every North Carolinian has a home in which to live with dignity and opportunity. Every North Carolinian. Be a part of that movement with me, please. Because we need each other right now. We'll see you next time.